Well, welcome to those of you that are here already, and anybody that's coming on later can be welcome then too. But as I mentioned on Sunday, so I kind of abbreviated the first part of the first half of this chapter, first chapter here. Um, and yeah, I mean, we'll give other people a week to get the book to discuss the full chapter, but just what were your thoughts about Sunday's message and the whole idea of the paradigm of church that we grew up with? It has some flaws in it.
It was super interesting to read this and to get that perspective. It's not something that I have not given a lot of thought to, and we should. It's fascinating to me. It really is something we need to look at.
So Brendan, I listened to you read the first two chapters.
Okay.
And I've never thought of it either, but it's interesting how he puts the first place is home, second place is work or school, third place is where you go to unwind, and then church just falls into this fourth place of going to sporting events or some kind of
a play or a concert or something.
Yeah, something that
country club.
It's not a and I liked how in the book he talks about Jesus took the temple and made it brought it to life, or to not as a place you go, but it's where you live. And I like that. I've always liked that idea of we're the church, and it's not about going to church on Sunday. It's about impacting my community every day of the week. And I like, I'm anticipating we're going deeper into that.
Yeah. Yeah. I know for me, I was introduced to this book at the last church that we were at. One of the board members handed me the book. The author is actually, I don't remember if he says it in chapter 1 or he tells a little bit more of his story, I think in chapter 3 maybe. Anyways, he's a pastor in Seattle that wrote this book. And somehow one of the board members kind of knew him tangentially, and so that's how they handed me the book. But I really have enjoyed the book, and like I said on Sunday, in order to get through it, I read it out loud. So I'm liking this, so I read it out loud and recorded myself for others to listen to it. And so now Deborah and I and Jason and Catherine have already gone through reading the book, and I remember when Jason and Catherine were first going through it, they were like, it kind of shook them. Like they're like, everything I knew about church, it sounds wrong now. Like we've been like, why, how could we have gotten, this far and kind of missed the point? And yet this other version, or like what we read in Acts chapter 2, like that just sounds amazing. That sounds great. That sounds sweet to be a part of a community like that. So how did we get away from that? Anyways, other thoughts? Hi, Danielle, welcome. I know you're walking around. So maybe you can't talk at the moment, but we wanted to say hi. What are the things stuck out to you just from the sermon? And we'll we'll dive into the book or next week once people have gotten a chance to pick it up.
I think we're going to have to get out of, well, let me rephrase that. So many people from my era, church was everything. You never questioned what went on in church, what happened at church, or what the pastor said. And there's so much damage and trauma from that era. And so then we did trauma. And so in order to heal that, you just can't sweep it under the carpet. But that's kind of been a lot of churches' viewpoint, the way, and so to be able to put on lenses that say we did wrong, we acknowledge it, and we can't right the wrong, but how do we quit making that mistake? And how do we say that some of these kids walk in trauma because of some of the things that have happened, and it's, I think that to be able to see that the church has to come outside the walls is going to meet a lot of people that wouldn't come inside the church walls.
Yeah.
And they're hungry for God. They know the presence of God. They want more. They've seen him, but they can't handle walking through those doors.
Yeah.
That's what I appreciate about this book, is it's challenging us to go outside.
Yeah. Other thoughts?
Yeah, that's the part that I am really looking forward to. I'm not letting myself read too far ahead, but looking forward to seeing how we integrate that. Because like you said, I don't know, God hasn't led us this way, but I don't think we're going to sell our building and, put up a tent. But it'll be interesting how we use our facility in a different way, possibly, and then integrate, because I hear what Brenda is saying. And the flip side of that, I think too, is she's right. There's a lot that won't come, but there's a lot that have the same ideas as those of us that grew up, that they know the church, so they know they can get help there. They think it's at least, I think, on their radar. So we need to be able to integrate those as well and make it a different experience than what they thought they were going to get in a positive, good way.
Yes.
Deb, any thoughts?
So many thoughts, but I'm going to use some of them for Sunday morning, and I don't want to give them away. But I met with 3 different people yesterday, 2 of whom I didn't plan to meet with. I went and had coffee with a friend, and she's like, "Hey, I think the guy across the street used to go to our church." So, I mean, I haven't seen him in a very long time. I used to babysit his kids. So I went across the street and I said, "Hey, how are you?" And anyways, I ended up inviting him to church, and I told him, I go to Mountain View Free Methodist Church, so you don't have to worry, you won't know anybody there. Like, he used to go to the Yakima Foursquare Church, and then his life fell apart, and I think he just doesn't feel welcome at church anymore, and so I was able to say, you can come to our, like, we're another place, and we will love you. And then I was driving home from that and I saw somebody else I used to babysit their kids, and I know her life has fallen apart too. And I don't know what church she attends, if any, but I gave her a ride to work. She was just walking on the street. And then she asked me what time our church met. And I was like, and you are definitely welcome at our church too, because yeah, you can start over. So.
Man.
And if there are people who need a ride to church, let us know. We'll gladly pick them up.
Okay.
I liked what you said, Abe, about, the shame, running in the church and, the church carpet being holier than thou, the shame. The look in our eyes, that's just resonated this week with me. God, open the eyes of my heart. Let me have eyes to see and ears to hear.
Yeah. Danielle, I know you may be at work or something, or you're in your car now, but feel free to chime in anytime.
Yes, sorry, I was a little late.
Right.
I was telling my best friend just this morning, I said, well, I'll tell you, Sunday night, I went to bed thinking about the church service, and that has happened to me exactly 0 times in my life. But I was just truly deeply moved. And so I'm really excited to read this book and apply it. So I didn't hear I hopped on just as I think you guys were discussing some of the younger generation and maybe some of the wounds that have occurred maybe to some of that group. And I have to say, it hurts my heart, but I agree that has occurred. And I think it would be a really powerful thing if that was said back to them, if that was acknowledged.
Yeah.
Some of my dearest friends, I think, have struggled with some of that. And I'd love to find a way to heal that and to find a way to bridge them back. I don't know how to do that. So.
Luckily, God doesn't. He just wants us to have the willing hearts.
Yes.
Open hearts.
Yeah.
I was thinking of Psalm, is it 61 or 62? Anyways, Jesus quoted it when he said, I have come to set the captives free. And just thinking, Jesus was like, I only have a short time. I don't just work on Sunday morning or Saturday morning. I have to work every day because my time is short. So he was like, I will set people free from sickness every day of the week. I will love people anywhere I go. I have to get this done. I'm on a mission. And so I think we all need to be on that same mission wherever we go. We don't know how long we have. And we need to be on this commission of setting people free from sin. And because we're free Methodists. It's all about setting people free, right?
Right. Anything else?
Like what Danielle says, I think one of the things that I'm really learning is that oftentimes it's good to ask their story and what their hurt was but not interrupt, and let them, and for us, and for me to be able, and I can only speak for me to be able to stand there and to listen, no matter how painful the pain, and make no excuses, but know that I have to stand there with Christ at the cross. Until I can get to that point, I can't go ask to hear their story. But that's the goal of my heart, is to where I can hear that story and make no excuse. And I can be a bridge that lays my life down to the cross, the reconciliation that Christ died for and rose again.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a lot of similar conversations with people, and just hearing some of the things and that they've experienced at churches or by different pastoral staff or Christians. And I've just, in that one-on-one conversation, just had to say, on behalf of the Church of Jesus, I want to apologize and say,
Right.
I am sorry that you were treated that way, or that you experienced that. Like, that should have never happened. I hope that allows some kind of healing to begin in their lives. But I think it's more our day-to-day living it out that's going to be the real, like, seal the deal kind of thing. Like, not just, and then even as you guys were talking about it, like thinking, there's some things that I can apologize for in a one-on-one conversation. And then I think you're right, Danielle. Like, it may be worth, whether it's a Sunday morning service or night of worship or some setting, like from the pulpit, to say, if you experience, rejection or shame or abuse, or any kind of, discouragement at the hands of the church, or something that limited your walk with Jesus, let me be the one to say I'm sorry, and like to do that from the pulpit. Because I think that is important. He talks about it a little bit in chapter 1, which, for those of you who don't have the book yet, you haven't read, but he talks about his own story and how he had a bunch of, he was on staff at a church, and then, but him and his friends like lived in a neighborhood together, and they started to do like these house party kind of things for their neighbors. And just, he felt some community there, and he felt like God's presence was there. And yet he'd go play worship at his church, and it was just like a performance, and there was no Christ intimacy there at all. And he's like, why am I feeling God's presence over here and not feeling God's presence over here, where on the outside it should seem that that's where it should be. Anyways, so like, I don't know what your guys' church backgrounds are. I grew up going to a little tiny church, smaller than Mountain View. My dad was a pastor of a Spanish church. We used the facility of a Assembly of God church, and there was maybe 40 people that went to the church. And then I went to college in Kirkland and had to find a new church. So there was a bunch of churches up in the Seattle area, and ended up going to some pretty good sized churches, maybe, 150, 200. And then I went to another church that was maybe 500 people. And then we went back to Grandview as youth pastors, and we were at a church that was like 60 to 70 people. And then we moved to Arkansas. And I don't know how many of you lived in the South before, and especially in a larger city in the South. Like every church was a mega church pretty much in Little Rock, Arkansas. Like if you had a church of 500 people, that was a small church in Arkansas. Like they were all, 1,500, 2,000, 3,000. And we went to churches like that. In fact, we went to two separate churches predominantly during our time there. The second one that we were going to was listed as one of the fastest growing churches in America in like 2015. And like they had 16 campuses at the time across the state of Arkansas, and their goal was to get to 50 campuses. And it was just huge production, like, lights and fog machines and cameras. And, we served on the production team. We got involved in kids ministry. Like we were involved in all this stuff. And yet sometimes I'd be sitting in a worship service with amazing singers. They couldn't be like, they recorded their own album. They were amazing singers.
And Chris Allen was from our church.
Yes, Chris Allen, who won American Idol first season. He was from their church. But I'd sit there in the worship service and I'd look around and I'd be like, okay, I know for a fact that camera is like a $10,000 camera, and they've got like 4 of them. And then that handheld camera is another like $5,000. And all these lights probably cost $30,000-$50,000. And like, that's a lot of money. Like, and it's not to say they weren't doing missions and they weren't doing, they were doing amazing stuff in the city, in the community. But like, just thinking, is it all needed? Do we need another newer camera? Do we need another fog machine? Do we need another light? And I think that's why when I read this book, it really resonated with me. Like, do we really need all of this show to be the Church of Jesus? And I think the resounding answer is like, no, we don't. Yeah. Anyways, we'll see where. I mean, on one hand, I like those things. It's great to be worshiping in that environment. Like, Lord knows, even the sound system here at Mountain View could use some tweaking. So it doesn't mean we shouldn't do things with excellence. And yet at the same time, like, what's really the thing that attracts people to Jesus? It's Jesus. Like, so.
You nailed it, Abe. You nailed it, because our daughter met both you and Deb separately as we were all going our separate ways at the hospital.
Yeah.
And our daughter has come back to us this weekend and said, I sat with those kids in Fairbanks, Alaska, who their parents didn't come to church. They had no reason to be there. No reason. And everybody shamed them because they sat in the back row and they didn't dress right and they didn't smell right. And they finally left. And yet the presence of God was there.
Mm.
The presence of God. And she talked about that this weekend, just this very weekend. And that's exactly, you so nailed it. They know the presence of God. They don't need fog lights. They don't need fancy cameras. They know the presence of God. And it says the presence of God is here to heal. They've seen him in the sanctuary. She knows it. She's going to know when she walks in and she sees and she feels the presence of God, because she has told us, she said, I did something. She said, I went up to see if people accepted me, if I went up front and I sat in the front row, or if I went and sat in the back and I, dressed crummy or whatever, if they would say mean things to me. And she said, I was so appalled at the way people treated me.
Hmm.
But she said the presence of God was so in the back,
Yeah.
where the young people whose parents didn't go to church, but they were seeking. And yet they walked away because the older people of the church, the people who needed the prestige, the look, they kept on snubbing their nose at them. And that's why she won't go to church today, you know, and things we did as parents. And the cry of our heart is, God, take and reconcile what we have done out of ignorance, and you know, that you're showing us now at an older age. Let us stand in the gap for parents who yet don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Brenda, I was going to thank Brenda for saying that. I'll be praying for those young ones.
and for your daughter,
Yeah.
remind me of her name again. Starts with an A.
Amelin.
Amelin. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to dive into this book with you guys and hear your feedback and hear your thoughts, and where's God challenging you, and where is he stretching you, and where is he leading us as we move forward as a church. Because yeah, we all could use what we read in Acts and that early church. And it wasn't perfect. Like, Paul wrote letters and letters to imperfect churches, and yet yeah, there's something not right with our mindset. And so hey, I just got a notification, running out of time. We removed the 40-minute time limit on your group meeting. Great. So thanks, Zoom. But yeah, I appreciate you guys for logging in. Next week, hopefully we can get some other people to join us, and we'll read through all of chapter 1 again, and maybe go through page by page, or highlight different things, or whatever. And feel free to read ahead and then go back and read the week's reading that we'll be discussing. But yeah, so awesome. Appreciate you guys. I don't have anything else to say, but if you guys want to keep talking, I'll keep it open.
I'll head back to work.
Okay.
Me too.
Thanks.
All right, Danielle, thanks for joining us. Thanks, Betsy, for joining us. We'll see you.
Thanks.
God bless.
Good to see you, Abe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.